Wherein we learn that Sapar, no less eager for gold than mammon, looked upon his heavenly home less favorably than upon France, a country blessed with a savings bank and loan departments, and wherein we see, yet once again, that whoso is possessed of this world's goods fears the evil effects of any change. Meanwhile Arcade led a life of obscure toil. He worked at a printer's in the Rue Saint-Benoît, and lived in an attic in the Rue Mouffetard. His comrades having gone on strike, he left the workroom and devoted his day to his propaganda. So successful was he that he won over to the side of revolt 50,000 of those guardian angels who, as Zita had surmised, were discontented with their condition and imbued with the spirit of the times. But lacking money, he lacked liberty, and could not employ his time as he wished in instructing the sons of heaven. So, too, Princester, hampered by want of funds, manufactured fewer bombs than were needed, and these less fine. Of course he prepared a good many small pocket machines. He had filled Théophile's rooms with them, and not a day passed but he forgot some and left them lying about on the seats in various cafés. But a nice bomb, easily handled and capable of destroying many big mansions, cost him from 20 to 25,000 francs, and Princester only possessed 2 of this kind. Equally bent on procuring funds, Arcade and Esther both went to make a request for money from a celebrated financier named Max Everdingen, who, as everyone knows, is the managing director of the biggest banking concern in France and indeed in the whole world. What is not so well known is that Max Everdingen was not born of woman, but is a fallen angel. Nevertheless, such is the truth. In heaven he was named Sapar, and guarded the treasures of Ildeboth, a great collector of gold and precious stones. In the exercise of this function Sapar contracted a love of riches which could not be satisfied in a state of society in which banks and stock exchanges are alike unknown. His heart flamed with an ardent love for the God of the Hebrews to whom he remained faithful during a long course of centuries. But at the commencement of the 20th century of the Christian era, casting his eyes down from the height of the firmament upon France, he saw that this country, under the name of a republic, was constituted as a plutocracy and that, under the appearance of a democratic government, high finance exercised sovereign sway, untrammeled and unchecked. Henceforth life in the Empyrean became intolerable to him. He longed for France as for the promised land, and one day, bearing with him all the precious stones he could carry, he descended to earth and established himself in Paris. This angel of cupidity did good business there. Since his materialization his face had lost its celestial aspect, it reproduced the Semitic type in all its purity, and one could admire the lines and the puckers which wrinkle the faces of bankers and which are to be seen in the money changers of Quintin Nazis. His beginnings were humble and his success amazing. He married an ugly woman and they saw themselves reflected in their children as in a mirror. Baron Max Everdingen's large mansion, which rears itself on the heights of the Trocadero, is crammed with the spoils of Christian Europe. The Baron received Arcade and Princester in his study, one of the most modest rooms in his mansion. The ceiling is decorated with a fresco of Tiepolo, taken from a Venetian palace. The bureau of the regent, Philip of Orleans, is in this room, which is full of cabinets, showcases, pictures, and statues. Arcade allowed his gaze to wander over the walls. "How comes it, my brother Sapar," said he, "that you, in spite of your Jewish heart, obey so well the commandment of the Lord your God who said, 'Thou shalt have no graven images'? For here I see an Apollo of Houdans and a Hebe of Lemoines, and several busts by Cafieri. And, like Solomon in his old age, O Son of God, you set up in your dwelling place the idols of strange nations, for such are this Venus of Boucher, this Jupiter of Rubens, and those nymphs that are indebted to Fragonard's brush for the gooseberry jam which smears their gleaming limbs. And here in this single showcase, Sapar, you keep the scepter of St. Louis, 600 pearls of Marie Antoinette's broken necklace, the imperial mantle of Charles V, the tiara wrought by Ghiberti for Pope Martin V, the Colonna, Bonaparte's sword, and I know not what besides." "Mere trifles," said Max Everdingen. "My dear Baron," said Princester, "you even possess the ring which Charlemagne placed on a fairy's finger and which was thought to be lost." But let us discuss the business on which we have come. My friend and I have come to ask you for money." "I can well believe it," replied Max Everdingen. "Everyone wants money, but for different reasons. What do you want money for?" Prince Sister replied simply, "To stir up a revolution in France." "In France," repeated the Baron, "in France? Well, I shall give you no money for that, you may be quite sure." Arcade did not disguise the fact that he had expected greater liberality and more generous help from a celestial brother. "Our project," he said, "is a vast one. It embraces both heaven and earth. It is settled in every detail. We shall first bring about a social revolution in France, in Europe, on the whole planet, then we shall carry war into the heavens, or we shall establish a peaceful democracy. And to reduce the citadels of heaven, to overturn the mountain of God, to storm celestial Jerusalem, a vast army is needful, enormous resources, formidable machines, and electrophores of a strength yet unknown. It is our intention to commence with France." "You are madmen," exclaimed Baron Everdingen, "madmen and fools. Listen to me. There is not one single reform to carry out in France. All is perfect, finally settled, unchangeable. You hear, unchangeable." And to add force to his statement, Baron Everdingen banged his fist 3 times on the Regent's bureau. "Our points of view differ," said Arcade sweetly. "I think, as does Prince Sister, that everything should be changed in this country. But what boots it to dispute the matter? Moreover, it is too late. We have come to speak to you, O my brother Sapar, in the name of 500,000 celestial spirits, all resolved to commence the universal revolution tomorrow." Baron Everdingen exclaimed that they were crazy, that he would not give a sou, that it was both criminal and mad to attack the most admirable thing in the world, the thing which renders earth more beautiful than heaven. Finance. He was a poet and a prophet. His heart thrilled with holy enthusiasm. He drew attention to the French savings bank, the virtuous savings bank, that chaste and pure savings bank like unto the Virgin of the Canticle who, issuing from the depths of the country in rustic petticoat, bears to the robust and splendid bank her bridegroom, who awaits her, the treasures of her love, and drew a picture of the bank, enriched with the gifts of its spouse, pouring on all the nations of the world torrents of gold, which, of themselves, by 1,000 invisible channels return in still greater abundance to the blessed land from which they sprung. By deposit and loan, he went on, France has become the new Jerusalem, shedding her glory over all the nations of Europe, and the kings of the earth come to kiss her rosy feet. And that is what you would fain destroy? You are both impious and sacrilegious. Thus spoke the angel of finance. An invisible harp accompanied his voice, and his eyes darted lightning. Meanwhile Arcade, leaning carelessly against the Regent's bureau, spread out under the banker's eyes various ground plans, underground plans, and sky plans of Paris with red crosses indicating the points where bombs should be simultaneously placed in cellars and catacombs, thrown on public ways, and flung by a flotilla of aeroplanes. All the financial establishments, and notably the Everdingen Bank and its branches, were marked with red crosses. The financier shrugged his shoulders. Nonsense! You are but wretches and vagabonds, shadowed by all the police of the world. You are penniless. How can you manufacture all the machines? By way of reply, Prince Sister drew from his pocket a small copper cylinder, which he gracefully presented to Baron Everdingen. You see, said he, this ordinary-looking box. It is only necessary to let it fall on the ground immediately to reduce this mansion with its inmates to a mass of smoking ashes, and to set a fire going which would devour all the Trocadero quarter. I have 10,000 like that, and I make 3 dozen a day. The financier asked the cherub to replace the machine in his pocket, and continued in a conciliatory tone. Listen to me, my friends. Go and start a revolution at once in heaven, and leave things alone in this country. I will sign a check for you. You can procure all the material you need to attack celestial Jerusalem. And Baron Everdingen was already working up in his imagination a magnificent deal in electrophores and war material.